Netflix wants you to believe you just watched the truth. You didn't. In the next 12 minutes, I'm going to show you the exact moments the verdict leaves out, the contradictions buried in the edit, the payments nobody mentions on screen, and the testimony that doesn't survive contact with the public record, not opinions, documents, quotes, dates. If you've already watched the documentary, you think you understand what happened to Michael Jackson. By the end of this video, you're going to realize you only understand what the editors wanted you to understand. There's a difference. And that difference has a name in journalism. It's called a one-sided story. Stick around because receipt number 3 is going to make you re-watch the entire thing with completely different eyes. Let's start with the basics, because Netflix didn't. Before there was The Verdict, there was Martin Bashir's 2003 film, Living with Michael Jackson. That's the documentary that introduced Gavin Arvizo to the public, the same Arvizo whose later allegations triggered the 2005 criminal trial that The Verdict spends its runtime revisiting. Here's the part Netflix glosses over. Bashir's own documentary was later condemned by British broadcasting regulators for misleading editing. The man who put the original allegations on the map built his credibility on a film that regulators themselves said distorted the truth. So when The Verdict treats the origins of this story as a neutral starting point, ask yourself, neutral according to who? Quick question. If a witness lied to you once, would you still trust their opening statement? No. Then why does the documentary? This next one is the receipt that breaks the narrative wide open. One of the men featured prominently in Jackson documentaries publicly praised Jackson years after the period he now says abuse occurred, writing warmly about Jackson's love for children and explicitly calling the criminal case against him a frame-up. That tribute exists. It's dated. It's public record. Here's the problem Netflix never addresses. A person who experienced what's now described on camera does not, years later, write a glowing public essay defending the same man and mocking the case against him. Either that essay was a lie or the documentary's version of events is incomplete. The series needs you to forget the essay exists because it never puts it on screen. Two competing stories can't both be the whole truth. Netflix picked the one that fits a 4-hour runtime. It didn't pick the one that fits the actual timeline. Money changes stories. Everyone knows this, which is exactly why documentaries are supposed to disclose it clearly. When one of the figures featured in the recent Netflix coverage was pressed directly, on camera, about whether Netflix paid him, he said he couldn't be paid for his appearance, but he was paid for his information. Then he went quiet enough that the interviewer simply let the moment pass. That's not a confession of wrongdoing, but it is a distinction that should have been front and center in the documentary itself, not something a viewer has to go digging for in a separate interview months later. If the source of your receipts was financially compensated for the information they gave you, the audience deserves to know that before the credits roll, not after. I'll let you sit with that one. Moving on, because it gets messier. Here's something true of nearly every Michael Jackson documentary made in the last decade, including this one. The filmmakers control who gets a microphone. Family members have repeatedly said they were never meaningfully consulted before these documentaries aired. The Jackson estate has gone on record and into court, arguing that producers failed to seek comment from people who could challenge the central narrative, choosing instead to build the entire runtime around the accuser's accounts alone. You can agree or disagree with the family's framing, but structurally, when a documentary's entire emotional architecture rests on one perspective, and the opposing side's strongest evidence and cross-examination never makes it past the cutting room floor, you're not watching a verdict. You're watching a closing argument with no defense attorney in the room. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just how editing works. The filmmakers behind The Verdict have defended their approach by pointing out that no cameras were permitted in the courtroom in 2005, meaning the public's understanding was filtered entirely through commentary at the time. Fair point. Cameras weren't there. But here's the irony. A documentary built specifically to fill that gap. to finally show people what happened ends up doing the exact same filtering, just with a different filter. Instead of 2005-era TV pundits shaping your perception, it's 2026-era editors, music supervisors, and a 4-hour runtime shaping it. The medium changed, the selectivity didn't. If the entire premise of your documentary is now you can see the full picture and large pieces of the actual trial record, the cross-examinations, and the contradicting statements still don't make it on screen. That's not a fuller picture. That's a different edit of the same incomplete one. And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because the same selectivity wasn't just used to build a case against Jackson, it was used in his defense too. Stay with me. So where does that leave us? Not with a clean answer. And honestly, that's the actual truth Netflix won't put in its own title. The reality is this: Michael Jackson's family has spent years insisting there has never been corroborating physical evidence presented against him, while accusers have spent years insisting their accounts are consistent and credible. Both of those things have been said repeatedly on camera, under oath, and in public. A documentary that picks one side and calls it The Verdict isn't delivering a verdict, it's delivering a title that sounds like one. Real verdicts come from courts, evidence, and cross-examination, all three of which existed in 2005, and none of which fit neatly into streaming runtime. Here's what we do know with actual receipts. The man who introduced the public to these allegations had his own documentary discredited for misleading editing. Public, dated statements exist that directly contradict the documentary's emotional timeline, and they're nowhere in the final cut. A key source was financially compensated for information, a detail buried outside the documentary itself. The family and estate were largely excluded from meaningfully shaping the narrative, and the no cameras in court justification cuts both ways. It explains the gap, but it doesn't excuse filling that gap with another incomplete edit. None of this proves Jackson was guilty. None of it proves he was innocent. What it proves is simpler and, frankly, more important. The verdict isn't a neutral document of what happened. It's a piece of media made by people with choices baked into every cut, choices that shape what you walk away believing. That's the actual lie, not a single fabricated fact, but the packaging, the title that promises closure on a story that never had it, the structure that presents one version of events with the confidence of a finished trial, when the real trial's most contested moments never made the runtime at all. So here's my challenge to you: don't take my word for it, and don't take Netflix's word for it either. Go read the original trial transcripts, go find the tribute essay I mentioned, go watch the family's full, unedited interviews, not the 3-minute clips. Build your own verdict from primary sources, not from a 4-hour edit with a title designed to feel definitive. Because the moment you let any single documentary tell you it has the verdict on a man, on a trial, on a legacy this complicated, you've stopped being a viewer. You've started being an audience for someone else's argument. If this breakdown opened your eyes to how these documentaries are actually built, subscribe. Because next week, I'm doing the same forensic breakdown on another Netflix truth that doesn't hold up to scrutiny. You won't want to miss what's in receipt number 1.